The human ship, Odyssey, drifted through the silent vastness of space, its hull gleaming under the cold light of distant stars. Captain Mira Solari stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the swirling nebula before them. It was beautiful, vibrant, like a cosmic ocean dancing with colors humans barely had names for. But beauty wasn't why they were here. They were explorers, the first of their kind to venture this far beyond the mapped territories of the Galactic Union. "Captain, we're receiving a signal. It's faint, but it's ancient. Predates every known civilization in the Union." Ensign Ral's voice quivered, a mix of awe and curiosity. Mira turned, her dark eyes narrowing. Ancient signals meant history, relics of the past, sometimes even danger. "Source?" she asked, her voice steady. Ral's fingers danced across the console. "It's coming from within the nebula, about 2 light-years deep. The pattern is structured. It's not natural." Mira's heart quickened. "Prepare to enter the nebula. Engage shields at full capacity. I want constant scans on every spectrum." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. They were the best Earth had to offer, pioneers meant to push humanity's limits. Yet, as they approached the heart of the nebula, even Mira felt the weight of the unknown pressing against her. The ship plunged into the swirling colors, sensors buzzing with activity. Screens flashed with data, most of it incomprehensible. The deeper they went, the more distorted reality became. Time flickered, shadows moved where they shouldn't, and whispers seemed to echo through the corridors. Then they saw it. An enormous structure floated amidst the cosmic dust, ancient and magnificent. It was vast, easily the size of a moon, its surface carved with symbols and patterns that seemed to shimmer with their own light. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, even in the vast archives of the Galactic Union. What is that?" whispered Ral, his voice barely more than a breath. Mira felt a shiver run down her spine. The structure was calling to her, a deep hum resonating through the ship, vibrating within her bones. It felt familiar, like a half-forgotten dream. "Scan it. I want every piece of data we can get." The ship's sensors reached out, touching the ancient surface, and the moment they did, the structure responded. Light rippled across its surface, and the hum grew louder, deeper, more resonant. The crew gasped as a wave of energy enveloped the ship, and for a moment, reality itself seemed to twist. Mira stumbled, gripping her chair as the bridge spun around her. Images flashed before her eyes, visions of vast cities that floated above planets wreathed in golden clouds, of beings tall and majestic, their eyes filled with stars. She saw ships that could bend space, weapons that could shatter worlds, and knowledge that surpassed everything humanity had ever known. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the visions stopped. The ship was silent, floating once more in the nebula, the ancient structure before them now dim and quiet. Mira looked around. The crew was shaken, faces pale, eyes wide. "Report!" she barked, forcing herself back to the present. Ral's voice trembled. "The structure, it's emitting a message in ancient Earth languages, Latin, Sanskrit, Sumerian, even Proto-Indo-European." Mira's heart skipped a beat. "On speakers. Now?" The bridge filled with a deep, resonant voice, echoing across time and space. It spoke in words that were old before humanity even dreamed of civilization, yet they understood it perfectly. "Welcome, children of Earth. Welcome home. We have awaited your return, for you are not new to the stars. You are their lost elders." The crew was stunned. Ral looked at Mira, his face pale. "Captain, what does that mean?" Mira couldn't answer. She felt a chill spread through her, the words echoing in her mind. Lost elders? Return? It didn't make sense. Humanity was young, barely crawling into the cosmic neighborhood. They were explorers, newcomers, weren't they? The structure's lights flickered again, and another message followed. This one softer, almost mournful. You were the first, you were the greatest, and then you forgot. But the stars remember. It is time to awaken. The bridge was silent, the weight of the revelation sinking in. Mira felt her hands tremble as she gripped the chair. Everything they knew about humanity's place in the universe was wrong. Captain, Ral's voice broke through her thoughts, shaky and uncertain. What do we do? Mira looked at the ancient structure, its vastness intimidating yet strangely comforting. It was waiting for them, calling them. Set a course for the structure, we're going in. Ral hesitated. Are you sure? Mira nodded, her voice firm. We came to explore the unknown. Looks like we found it. As the Odyssey moved towards the ancient monument, the nebula seemed to shimmer, the colors intensifying, wrapping around them like a cocoon. Mira watched the stars through the viewport, a strange feeling of nostalgia washing over her. Maybe they weren't as new to the cosmos as they thought. Maybe, just maybe, they were coming home. The Odyssey approached the ancient structure, its colossal form growing ever larger on the view screen. It was breathtaking. Intricate carvings covered its surface, swirling patterns that seemed to shift and move as they watched. Symbols danced along the edges, flickering with faint light, whispering secrets in a language lost to time. Captain Mira Solari stood firm, her heart pounding as they drew closer. Her instincts screamed that this was important, more than just another alien artifact. This was a piece of their history, a fragment of a past they didn't even know they had. Docking Bay detected, Ral announced, his voice tight with anticipation. The structure it's opening for us. On the screen, a section of the ancient monument shifted, vast panels sliding apart to reveal a docking port large enough to swallow their ship. Lights flickered to life within, guiding them in like beacons in the darkness. Mira took a deep breath. Take us in, steady as she goes. The ship's thrusters hummed, and the Odyssey glided forward. The docking bay was immense, cavernous, its walls covered in the same shifting patterns. The air inside shimmered, faintly glowing, and Mira felt a strange warmth wash over her, as if the structure itself was welcoming them. The ship settled with a soft thud, magnetic clamps securing them in place. The hum of the engines quieted, leaving an almost reverent silence in its wake. Mira turned to her crew. Suit up, we're going in. Ral's eyes widened. Captain, are you sure? We don't know what's in there. Mira's jaw tightened. We've come this far. We need answers. It didn't take long to assemble the team. Mira, Ral, and 2 security officers, Asha and Pierce. They donned their environmental suits, sealing their helmets as the airlock hissed open. The walkway extended, connecting them to the ancient structure. Mira was the first to step onto the alien floor, her boots echoing softly. The surface felt solid but warm, almost alive. The patterns along the walls shifted as they approached, glowing softly, the symbols swirling and changing, just beyond comprehension. Asha scanned the air. Breathable atmosphere, slightly richer in oxygen, but within safe limits. Mira hesitated, then unlocked her helmet, the hiss of depressurization breaking the silence. She took a cautious breath, the air cool and sweet, tinged with an undefinable scent that felt strangely familiar. The others followed suit, their faces a mixture of awe and caution. They moved deeper into the structure, lights dancing around them, guiding their way. The walls pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat, and Mira felt a shiver run through her. It's like it's Alive, Pierce whispered, his hand resting on the wall. The moment he touched it, the symbols flared bright, and the floor beneath them shifted. The corridor stretched out, the walls flowing like liquid, rearranging themselves. The team staggered back, weapons raised, but the motion was graceful, almost gentle. It wasn't an attack, it was an invitation. Mira swallowed hard. Stay close, keep your eyes open. They continued down the ever-changing passage, the walls guiding them deeper. The symbols grew brighter, more vibrant, and Mira felt them tugging at her mind, whispering in a voice she couldn't understand yet somehow recognized. They entered a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in shadow, the floor a mosaic of swirling lights. In the center stood a pedestal, its surface shimmering with golden energy. Mira stepped closer, her heart pounding, drawn to it. As she approached, the pedestal responded, light coalescing into a shape, a hologram, ancient and regal. The figure was tall, humanoid, but impossibly elegant, its eyes glowing with the light of 1,000 stars. The team froze, weapons ready, but the figure merely watched them, its gaze soft and sorrowful. Then it spoke. "Welcome home, Mira Solari, descendant of the First Ones. We have waited eons for your return." Mira's blood ran cold. How do you know my name?" The figure's eyes shimmered. "You bear the mark of the elders, the children who were lost. You carry within you the echoes of those who built the stars, who shaped galaxies. You are the last of the ancient race that once ruled the cosmos." Mira staggered back, her mind reeling. No, that's impossible. We're humans. We just reached the stars. We're new." The figure's gaze softened. "New?" "No, child. You are the oldest. When the great cataclysm shattered your empire, the survivors fled to the farthest corner of the galaxy, to a blue world where they became small. They forgot. But the blood of the ancients flows in you still." Ral's face was pale. "Captain, this can't be real. We're just explorers." Mira shook her head, her heart pounding. "Number this place, this feeling. It's too familiar. Like I've been here before. Like I belong." The hologram's eyes glowed brighter. "Your people were the architects of worlds, the guardians of knowledge, but in your fall you lost yourselves. Now you have returned, as foretold. The stars remember. It is time for you to remember too." The lights in the chamber pulsed, and the mosaic on the floor began to shift, images forming, cities that floated among the stars, ships that could bend space, weapons that shattered planets. Mira saw faces, familiar yet unknown, eyes glowing with the same light as the hologram. Her knees buckled, and she sank to the floor, the memories flooding her mind. Visions of power, of knowledge beyond imagination. And then destruction, cataclysm, an empire burning, worlds collapsing, and the survivors, fleeing to a distant world, a blue planet, lush and green. Earth, a sob escaped her lips. We ran away. We forgot." The hologram knelt before her, its gaze kind. "You survived, and now you are here to reclaim your legacy." The light swirled around them, the ancient structure vibrating with energy, the symbols glowing bright as day. The past was returning, and with it a power they had long forgotten. Mira looked up, her eyes burning with newfound understanding. They were not newcomers to the stars. They were the lost elders, and the universe was waiting for them to awaken. Mira stood slowly, her legs unsteady beneath her. The visions still danced before her eyes, worlds beyond imagination, knowledge vast enough to reshape reality. She looked at her hands, expecting them to glow with the power she had seen in those ancient figures, but they were just hands. Human hands. Ral's voice wavered. Captain, what does this mean? If we're the descendants of some ancient race, then why don't we remember? Why don't we have their power? The hologram's gaze softened, its form flickering slightly. When the great cataclysm shattered your empire, the survivors were broken in more ways than one. Their minds could not bear the weight of all they had lost. They chose to forget, to start anew on a distant world, free of the knowledge that had destroyed them. Mira's throat tightened. They erased themselves, on purpose. Yes, the hologram whispered, its voice tinged with sorrow. To protect what was left, they buried their past deep within, in stories, in myths. The echoes of who they were became legend, but the blood remembers, and so does the light. Asha stepped forward, her eyes wide. Captain, what if that's why Earth's myths are so similar to the legends of other star systems? What if we were the ones who spread them in the first place? Mira felt a chill. It made sense, horribly, beautifully so. Earth's ancient stories of gods and monsters, of worlds beyond the skies, they weren't fantasies. They were memories, fragmented echoes of a past too immense to comprehend. The hologram gestured to the walls, and the chamber responded, the patterns shifting again. Images formed in the air, vast ships with flowing designs, cities floating on golden clouds, beings whose eyes gleamed with the light of galaxies. Mira felt an ache in her chest, a longing so deep it hurt. She recognized them. Not faces, but souls, echoes of people she felt she should know but couldn't name. These were our ancestors. Yes, the hologram said. They were your kin, the builders of the stars. They ruled with wisdom and power, guardians of balance. But even they were not immune to pride and fear. In their arrogance, they created weapons beyond control, and in their fear, they destroyed themselves. The images shifted, showing worlds crumbling, stars imploding, entire galaxies burning. Mira staggered back, the horror of it overwhelming. They destroyed everything. Not everything, the hologram corrected. Some survived. They fled, scattering across the cosmos, hiding on distant worlds, their memories erased, their powers sealed. Earth was one such refuge. And now, after eons, you have returned to the cradle of your ancestors' knowledge. Pierce's voice was tight. But why now? Why let us remember now? The hologram's light dimmed, its form flickering with ancient weariness. Because the darkness that destroyed your empire was not defeated, it was only delayed. It grows again, feeding on the chaos of the universe. It knows you have returned, and it fears you, for you alone can stop it. The chamber shuddered, the walls vibrating as if the structure itself was afraid. Lights pulsed, a low hum echoing through the corridors. Asha looked around, eyes wide. Captain, something's happening. Mira felt the hum in her bones, a sense of urgency she couldn't explain. Hologram? What is that? The darkness approaches. It senses your awakening and comes to prevent it. It has waited for this moment, for your bloodline to reveal itself. Mira's heart raced. Can we fight it? Not yet, the hologram warned. You are not ready. You must remember. You must reclaim your birthright. Only then will you have the strength to face it. The floor beneath them began to glow, symbols flaring to life, spiraling around them. Light enveloped Mira, warmth spreading through her body, both soothing and terrifying. She felt the memories stir, ancient and powerful, whispers at the edge of her consciousness. The hologram's eyes were bright, its form shimmering with urgency. Take the knowledge. Take the power that is yours by right. Awaken, Mira Solari, last daughter of the elders. Become what you were meant to be. The light surged, blinding and fierce. Mira screamed as the memories flooded in, images of worlds she had never seen, languages she had never spoken, powers she had never imagined. She was falling through time, through history, through herself. She saw battles in the stars, armies of light fighting shadows that consumed everything they touched. She saw herself, or someone like her, standing on the bridge of a ship, commanding forces that shaped the cosmos. She saw the fall, the destruction, the choice to forget. And she felt the pain, the loss, the hope that one day they would return. The light dimmed, and Mira collapsed to her knees, gasping for breath. Her mind was ablaze with knowledge, power surging through her veins. She looked at her hands, and this time they did glow, faint tendrils of light curling around her fingers, shimmering with ancient energy. Ral's voice was a whisper. "Captain, your eyes, they're glowing." Mira looked up, her reflection visible in the smooth walls. Her eyes were luminous, shimmering with the same light as the hologram, as the ancient symbols. She felt the power within her, waiting, ready. The hologram's voice was gentle. "You are awakened, but there is more to learn, more to remember. This structure is only the beginning. There are others scattered across the galaxy waiting for you. You must find them, gather the knowledge of your ancestors, and prepare for the darkness that comes." The structure shuddered again, and the hologram's form began to flicker, its light dimming. "It approaches. You must leave this place. But remember, Mira Solari, you are the last hope of the stars." The chamber trembled, the walls vibrating as the darkness loomed closer. Mira stood, the ancient power flowing through her, her resolve hardening. She was no longer just an explorer, no longer just a captain of a human ship. She was a descendant of the Elders, the last of the lost race that once ruled the cosmos, and she would not let the darkness consume them again. "Team, fall back to the ship," she ordered, her voice steady. "We're leaving, but we're coming back. This is just the beginning." They ran through the shifting corridors, the structure guiding them out, the light flickering as the darkness closed in. As they boarded the Odyssey, Mira looked back at the ancient monument, its symbols glowing faintly, a promise of what was to come. They were not newcomers to the stars. They were the lost Elders. And it was time to reclaim their destiny. The Odyssey shot out of the nebula, engines roaring as it raced away from the ancient structure. On the view screen, the swirling clouds churned, shadows flickering through the vibrant colors. Something moved within, vast and sinister, darkness coiling like smoke, reaching out with tendrils of malice. "Full power to the engines!" Mira commanded, her voice sharper than steel. "Get us out of here now!" Ral's fingers danced across the controls. "Engines at maximum! Calculating jump coordinates!" The ship shuddered, a low growl reverberating through the hull. Lights flickered, and an unnatural cold seeped into the air, the shadows on the bridge stretching, twisting. Mira's breath hitched as a whisper echoed through her mind, soft and cruel. "You cannot escape. You are mine." She gritted her teeth, shaking off the chill. "Shields to full! Pierce, I want weapons hot. Whatever that thing is, we're not going down without a fight." On the screen, the shadows congealed, forming a shape. A face, vast and terrible, eyes like black holes, hollow and hungry. Its mouth opened, revealing an abyss that seemed to swallow the light itself. Ral's voice trembled. "Captain, what is that?" Mira stared at the darkness, her eyes still glowing faintly with the ancient power. "The darkness that destroyed our ancestors. It followed us. It knows who we are." The face leaned closer, filling the screen, its voice a low, rumbling hiss. "I remember you, Mira Solari. I remember your kind. You thought you could hide. You thought you could forget. But I am eternal. And now, you are mine." The ship bucked violently, alarms blaring as the darkness wrapped around them, the tendrils of shadow squeezing, crushing. Metal groaned under the pressure, and the lights dimmed, the air growing colder. Asha's voice was tight with fear. "Shields are failing. We can't hold it off." Mira's mind raced, ancient knowledge flickering at the edge of her consciousness. She felt the power within her, warm and bright, the echo of her ancestors' light. But she didn't know how to use it, didn't know how to fight with it. The darkness laughed, a deep, hollow sound that shook the ship. "You are weak, just like before. You cannot stop me. You never could." Pain lanced through Mira's head, memories flooding in, visions of battles fought in the stars, light against shadow, screams echoing through the void. She saw herself, or the ancient version of herself, standing against this darkness, blazing with power, and losing. They had lost. The elders had fallen, and the darkness had devoured them. Number not again. Mira clenched her fists, the light around her hands flaring brighter. The words came to her, ancient and powerful, a language she had never spoken yet knew by heart. Her voice echoed through the bridge, resonant and fierce. "I am Mira Solari, descendant of the elders, bearer of the first light. You will not have me. You will not have my people." The darkness recoiled, the shadows rippling, its eyes narrowing with hate. "You dare defy me? You who are nothing but a shadow of what you were?" Mira stood tall, the light blazing around her, flowing through her veins, ancient and fierce. She understood now. The power of the elders wasn't just about strength or weapons. It was about hope, about defiance, about the light that never died. She spread her hands, and the light erupted, golden and radiant, filling the bridge, pouring out into the void. It touched the darkness, and the shadows screamed, writhing in agony as the light burned them away. The face on the screen contorted, fury and fear twisting its features. "No, you were broken. You were lost. You were mine." Mira took a step forward, her eyes blazing with the light of stars. "We were lost, but we are found. We remember who we are." The light surged, a tidal wave of golden fire crashing into the darkness, tearing it apart. The shadows screamed, their form unraveling, dissolving into nothingness. The nebula blazed with light, colors exploding in every direction as the darkness was banished, driven back to the void. The pressure on the ship vanished, and the lights flickered back to life, the cold receding. The Odyssey drifted free, the ancient structure shining in the distance, its symbols glowing with approval. Ral let out a shaky breath. "Captain? What just happened?" Mira looked down at her hands, the light fading, her eyes returning to normal. She felt the power settle within her, waiting, ready, a legacy she had never known, but that had always been hers. "We fought back," she said softly. "We remembered, and we won." Pierce let out a laugh, a sound of disbelief and relief. "Hell of a way to win, Captain. But what was that thing?" Mira's face hardened. "The same darkness that destroyed our ancestors. It's been waiting for us, feeding on the chaos of the galaxy. It's afraid of us, because it knows we're the only ones who can stop it." Asha looked at the screen, the nebula now calm, the shadows gone. "If it's afraid of us, that means it'll come back, stronger." Mira nodded, her gaze unwavering. "Yes, and next time, we'll be ready." She turned to the crew, her voice firm. "Plot a course for the Galactic Union. We need to warn them. And then, we find the other structures. We gather the knowledge of our ancestors. We awaken the rest of our power." Ral grinned, the fear fading from his eyes. "You really think we can do that?" Mira's eyes glowed for a moment, a flicker of golden light. "I know we can. We're the lost elders of the stars. It's time we started acting like it. The crew moved with renewed purpose, the ship coming to life under their hands. As the Odyssey turned away from the nebula, Mira looked back at the ancient structure, its lights shimmering in silent farewell. They were going home. But first they had a galaxy to save. The stars awaited their return. And this time, they were ready. The Odyssey sailed through the void, stars streaking past as it leaped through hyperspace. On the bridge, the crew moved with purpose, their fear replaced by determination. They were more than explorers now. They were the descendants of the most powerful civilization the galaxy had ever known, and they were ready to reclaim their destiny. Mira stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the swirling lights of hyperspace. Her hands no longer trembled. She could still feel the ancient power humming beneath her skin, like a fire waiting to be unleashed. It frightened her, but it also felt right, like putting on armor that was made just for her. Ral approached, his face a mixture of awe and uncertainty. "Captain, I've been analyzing the data from the structure. The symbols, the energy readings, they're far beyond anything we've ever encountered. It's like the laws of physics don't apply to them." Mira's lips curved into a small smile. "Maybe they don't. Our ancestors built the stars. They weren't limited by the rules we know. They made their own." Ral swallowed, glancing at her hands, half expecting them to start glowing again. "You really believe that? That we were gods once?" Mira looked at him, her eyes serious. "Not gods, just more than we are now. And if we were once that powerful, then we can be again." Before Ral could respond, the ship lurched, the lights flickering. Alarms blared, and the viewscreen shattered into chaos as hyperspace distorted around them, twisting and warping. A voice echoed through the bridge, deep and malevolent, dripping with malice. "Did you think you could escape me, little heir? Did you think your light could banish the dark?" Mira's heart skipped a beat. The darkness. It had followed them. The shadows coalesced on the viewscreen, forming the face again, its hollow eyes burning with hate. The tendrils of shadow lashed out, wrapping around the ship, squeezing tight. Metal groaned under the pressure, and the bridge shuddered violently. "Shields failing!" Asha shouted, her fingers flying over the controls. "It's trying to pull us out of hyperspace!" Mira gripped the console, her knuckles white. "Divert all power to engines! Break free now!" The Odyssey roared, its thrusters blazing, but the shadows held fast, dragging them back. Hyperspace twisted, bending around the darkness, reality itself warping under its power. The face loomed closer, its mouth curling into a wicked smile. "You cannot escape. You never could. Your kind was always weak, always afraid. That's why you ran. That's why you forgot." Pain lanced through Mira's head, memories forcing their way to the surface. Visions of the cataclysm, of worlds burning, of her ancestors fleeing the darkness, broken and defeated. She saw herself, standing on the bridge of a golden ship, tears in her eyes as she made the choice to forget, to hide on a distant world, to become small and powerless. The darkness laughed. "You were cowards then, and you are cowards now. Give up, little heir. Let me consume you, as I did before." Mira's vision blurred, the pain overwhelming, but she refused to bow. The fire within her surged, the light flaring, pushing back the shadows. She took a deep breath, her voice steady and fierce. "Maybe they were afraid. Maybe they ran, but I won't. I'm not afraid of you." The darkness hissed, its eyes narrowing. "You should be. You are nothing compared to me, a pale shadow of your ancestors, broken and weak." Mira's anger flared, the light blazing brighter. "Maybe I am, but I'm still here, and as long as I'm here, you don't win." She reached within herself, finding the words that were etched into her soul, ancient and powerful, the language of the elders. She spoke, her voice resonating through the bridge, through the ship, through the void. "I am the light of the elders. I am the heir of stars. Begone, shadow. You have no power over me." The light erupted from her, golden and fierce, pouring through the ship, flowing into the systems, into the engines, into the shields. It spread like wildfire, blazing through the hull, wrapping the Odyssey in a cocoon of radiant energy. The darkness screamed, the shadows recoiling, burning under the light's touch. The tendrils shattered, dissolving into smoke, and the face twisted in fury and pain. "No, you were mine! You were always mine!" Mira stood tall, her eyes glowing with the light of 1,000 suns. "Not anymore. I remember who I am. I remember who we are, and you're just a shadow of the past." The light surged, a tidal wave of golden fire, crashing into the darkness, tearing it apart. The shadows screamed, their form unraveling, dissolving into nothingness. Hyperspace stabilized, the ship lurching as it broke free, the stars snapping back into focus. The alarms silenced, the shadows gone, the bridge bathed in golden light. Mira sagged, exhaustion washing over her. She felt the power retreat, settling within her, quiet but present, waiting for the next battle. Ral stared at her, his eyes wide. "Captain, how did you—" Mira managed a tired smile. "I remembered. The power of the elders isn't just about strength. It's about light, about hope. That's what the darkness can't stand. That's what it fears." Asha's voice was soft. "If it fears us, it'll come back. It won't stop until we're gone." Mira looked at the stars, her eyes hardening. "I know. That's why we have to get stronger. We need to find the other structures, unlock the rest of our knowledge. We need to be ready." Pierce grinned, the tension breaking. "Then let's get to it. We've got an empire to rebuild." Mira felt a spark of hope, the light within her flickering brighter. They were the lost elders, the heirs of a civilization that had once ruled the stars, and now they were ready to rise again. She turned to Ral. "Set a course for the nearest Union outpost. We've got a story to tell, and a galaxy to save." The Odyssey surged forward, engines blazing with ancient light, cutting through the stars like a blade of gold. The darkness was far from defeated, but the light had returned. The lost elders were awakening, and the universe would never be the same. The Odyssey docked at the Galactic Union outpost, its hull still shimmering with faint traces of ancient light. The station was massive, a floating metropolis surrounded by defense satellites and bustling traffic lanes. Ships from 100 different species zipped by, their hulls gleaming under the outpost's artificial sun. Mira stood at the viewport, watching the organized chaos. She felt a pang of nostalgia, remembering how she once marveled at the Union's grandeur, its vastness. It had seemed infinite, the pinnacle of civilization. But now, after what she had learned, it looked small, fragile. The truth was so much bigger. Ral approached, his face tight with worry. "Captain, the Union's hailing us. They're demanding an explanation for the energy surge we emitted, and they're scanning us intensively." Mira's eyes narrowed. "They've never been this paranoid before. What's changed?" Ral hesitated. "Rumors are spreading about shadows, ships vanishing, planets going dark. They think we're infected." Mira's blood ran cold. The darkness was already moving, spreading like a disease through the galaxy, and the Union was afraid of something they couldn't understand. "Patch me through to the Union Command. They need to know the truth." Rail's fingers flew over the console, and the screen flickered, connecting to the Union's central command chamber. A council of alien leaders appeared, their faces stern and guarded. In the center sat High Chancellor Valen, his silver eyes piercing, his horns gleaming under the chamber's lights. "Captain Mira Solari?" Valen's voice was cold, his eyes narrowing. "Your ship is emitting energy signatures that violate every known law of physics, and you've returned from the Nebula of Lost Echoes, a place where no ship has ever survived. Explain yourself. Now." Mira took a deep breath. "High Chancellor, we've discovered something. Something ancient. Something that changes everything we know about humanity and our place in the galaxy." Valen's gaze hardened. "What are you talking about?" Mira's voice was steady, unyielding. "We are not newcomers to the stars. We are the descendants of the Elders, the first race to rule the cosmos. Our ancestors built the stars, shaped galaxies, and then they fell. They chose to forget, to become human, to hide from the darkness that destroyed them." The chamber fell silent. The council members looked at each other, disbelief and shock flashing across their faces. Valen's eyes narrowed, his hands tightening on his throne. "This is madness, human mythology. You expect us to believe that your people are the lost rulers of the universe?" Mira stepped closer to the screen, her eyes burning with determination. "Believe or don't, but the darkness that destroyed them is back. It followed us. It's spreading, consuming worlds. It attacked us, and it will attack again." The screen flickered, showing distorted footage of dark shadows enveloping ships, twisting reality, swallowing light. The council members gasped, faces pale with fear. One of them, an insectoid diplomat with iridescent wings, leaned forward. "Our probes, they recorded these anomalies, but we thought it was a natural phenomenon." "It's not," Mira said, her voice grim. "It's alive, it remembers, and it wants to finish what it started." Valen's face was pale, his confidence shaken. "And you claim to be the heirs of the only race that ever stood against it?" Mira hesitated, feeling the weight of her words. "Not just claim. We are. The power in my blood, the knowledge in my mind. It's proof. We were the Elders. We forgot. But now we remember. And if we don't stand together, the darkness will consume us all." Valen's eyes flicked to something off-screen, and the chamber's lights dimmed. A hologram appeared, showing the Union's territories, hundreds of star systems, vibrant and bustling. But then the darkness spread, like ink in water, swallowing stars, snuffing out life. "This shadow," Valen said, his voice hollow. "It's already within our borders. If what you say is true, then the Union is doomed." "Not if we fight back," Mira said fiercely. "But to do that, we need to awaken the rest of our power. There are other structures out there, relics of our past, waiting to be unlocked. We need to find them, gather the knowledge of the Elders, and use it to stand against the darkness." The council erupted in murmurs, fear and doubt swirling through the room. But then Valen raised his hand, silencing them. He looked at Mira, his silver eyes hard as steel. "You understand what you're asking? To believe that humanity is the heir to a lost empire, to rally our fleets behind a forgotten legend. It's madness." Mira met his gaze, her voice unwavering. "Madness or not, it's the truth. And it's our only chance." The silence hung heavy, tension crackling through the air. Valen's face was a mask of conflict, disbelief warring with fear. Finally he spoke, his voice low and dangerous. "Prove it." Mira nodded. She turned to the viewport, her eyes glowing with ancient light. She spoke the words of the Elders, the language of power, her voice resonant and fierce. Golden light erupted from her, swirling around the ship, wrapping the Odyssey in a cocoon of radiance. The energy surged through the station, touching every screen, every sensor, every being. It was pure, warm, powerful, and unmistakably ancient. The council gasped, eyes wide with awe and terror. Valen staggered back, his face pale, his silver eyes reflecting the golden light. By the stars, it's true. The light faded, settling back within Mira, her eyes still glowing faintly. She stood tall, the weight of her legacy heavy on her shoulders. This is just the beginning. There are other structures out there, other fragments of our past. I need the Union's support to find them, to unlock our power, and to prepare for the darkness that's coming. Valen's face hardened, the fear giving way to resolve. Very well. I will convene the fleets, but know this, Mira Solari, if you betray us, if you misuse this power, I will end you myself. Mira's eyes gleamed with golden fire. I'm not your enemy, High Chancellor. The darkness is, and it's coming for all of us. The screen went dark, the connection severed. Ral let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. That could have gone worse. Mira smiled, exhaustion tugging at her, but she refused to falter. We have the Union's attention. Now we need to prepare for war. Pierce grinned, his eyes gleaming with excitement. About time. Let's show the galaxy what the Lost Elders can do. Mira turned to the stars, her heart pounding with anticipation. They had allies, they had power, and they had a mission. The darkness was coming, but they were ready. The Lost Elders were rising, and the universe would stand or fall by their light. The Galactic Union's fleet gathered above the planet Ithar, a strategic stronghold at the edge of Union space. Hundreds of warships floated in formation, their hulls gleaming under the light of a distant sun. It was the largest armada the galaxy had seen in centuries, a coalition of dozens of species, united by fear and hope. On the bridge of the Odyssey, Mira stood before the view screen, her face calm, her eyes glowing softly with ancient light. The power of the Elders pulsed within her, steady and warm, a reminder of who she was, who they all were. Ral's voice broke the silence. Captain, the fleet is in position. Defensive perimeters established. High Chancellor Valan is ready to broadcast your message to the entire Union. Mira took a deep breath, the weight of the moment pressing on her. Everything had led to this. The darkness was coming, and they had one chance to stand together, to fight back, to prove that they were more than their fear, that they were more than shadows of the past. Patch me through, she ordered, her voice steady. The screen flickered, and Mira's face was projected to every ship, every station, every world within the Union's vast reach. She saw faces, human, alien, young and old, warriors and civilians, all watching, all waiting. She spoke, her voice carrying through the void, resonant with the power of her ancestors. People of the Galactic Union, today we face an enemy older than time, a darkness that destroyed our ancestors, that consumed the greatest civilization the stars have ever known. It thought it had won. It thought it had erased us. Her eyes blazed with golden fire. But we survived. We endured. We forgot who we were, but we are remembering. We are the lost elders of the stars, the heirs of a power that shaped galaxies. And today, we fight not just for ourselves, but for every being who calls this universe home. The fleet was silent, anticipation vibrating through the comm channels. Mira felt their fear, their doubt, but also their hope. They were ready. They were willing to fight, to believe. The darkness is coming, Mira continued, her voice fierce. It feeds on fear, on division. But we are united. We are stronger together than it could ever imagine. Today, we do not run. Today, we do not hide. Today, we make our stand. She took a deep breath, her heart pounding. For the Union, for the galaxy, for the light. A roar echoed through the comms, a chorus of voices from 100 worlds, 1,000 ships. It was a sound of defiance, of courage, of hope. The fleet was ready. And then the stars went dark. The shadows came without warning, rippling through space, bending light, twisting reality. They poured from the void, vast and malevolent, coiling like serpents around the fleet. The darkness loomed, a face forming within the shadows, eyes hollow and hungry, a mouth that grinned with endless malice. The voice was a whisper and a roar, echoing through every ship, every mind. You think you can defy me? You who are dust and echoes? You who were broken once before? You are nothing, and I am forever. The shadows surged, swallowing the light, the fleet shuddering under the weight of the darkness. Ships buckled, shields cracking, reality itself warping under the onslaught. But Mira stood firm, her eyes blazing. She remembered the ancient words, the language of the elders, the language of light. She spoke, her voice a beacon in the void. You are shadow, you are fear, but we are light, we are hope, and hope never dies. The power surged through her, ancient and fierce, golden light bursting from her body, flowing into the ship, into the fleet. It spread like wildfire, blazing through the hulls, wrapping every ship in a cocoon of radiant energy. The darkness screamed, recoiling as the light touched it, burning away the shadows. The face twisted in fury, eyes blazing with hate. No, you were mine! You were always mine! Mira raised her hands, the light pouring from her, golden and pure. We were never yours. We were always more than you could understand, and today, we take back what's ours. The light exploded, a tidal wave of brilliance that shattered the darkness, tearing through the shadows, burning them away. The face contorted, screaming as it unraveled, dissolving into smoke and dust, fading into the void. The stars returned, shining bright and clear. The fleet floated in the aftermath, the shadows gone, the darkness defeated. A cheer rose through the comms, a victory cry that echoed across the galaxy. Mira collapsed to her knees, exhaustion washing over her. She felt the power settling within her. Quiet now, the light still there but no longer burning. She was herself again, but more. Whole. Ral's voice was thick with emotion. Captain, you did it. We won. Mira looked at the view screen, at the stars blazing with light. No, Ral, we did it. All of us. Together. The fleet regrouped, the wounded tended, the fallen honored. The Union was safe, for now. But the galaxy had changed. The legend of the lost elders had awakened, and the darkness was not the only force that would take notice. In the days that followed, Mira spoke before the Union Council, telling them of their forgotten past, of the power waiting to be reclaimed, of the structures scattered across the stars. They listened, they questioned, but in the end, they believed. The light had returned, and it was time to rebuild. Standing on the bridge of the Odyssey, Mira watched the stars, a sense of purpose burning within her. The journey wasn't over. There were more structures to find, more knowledge to unlock, more power to reclaim. And the darkness would return. She was certain of that. But they would be ready. They were no longer lost. They were the heirs of the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known, the builders of stars, the guardians of light. Mira smiled, her eyes glowing faintly. Set a course, Ral. We've got an empire to remember. The Odyssey surged forward, engines blazing with ancient light cutting through the stars. The galaxy awaited, and the lost elders were ready to rise once more. The legend had returned, and the universe would never be the same. The retribution drifted in the cold void, its hull scarred by the final battle that had ended a war spanning a decade. Plasma burns licked across its starboard side, and jagged fractures marred the once pristine armor. Inside, The ship hummed with the sound of repair drones and the distant echo of soldiers tending to their wounds. Commander Dain Kestros stood at the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. The faint blue glow of the galactic core bathed the warship's cracked viewport. His dark eyes, framed by months of exhaustion, were locked on the debris field outside, a graveyard of shattered Dominion warships. Bodies, frozen and broken, drifted in the weightless expanse. The war was over. They had won. But victory left a bitter taste. Behind him, Lieutenant Aria Vallis approached, her light footfalls barely audible. "The Council has sent orders," she said, her voice sharp but controlled. Dain turned, his gaze hard. Aria had been part of his unit for years, one of the best recon specialists the Alliance had ever trained. But now even she seemed wary, uncertain. "Let me guess," Dain said, his voice low. "They want us to clean up the mess." Aria nodded and handed him a datapad. The holographic text flickered to life, the blue glow illuminating the lines of his battle-worn face. "Not just a cleanup," she said. "A hunt." The name at the top of the order sent a slow pulse of fury through his veins. Admiral Saris. The man who had stood beside them for years, the man who had sworn loyalty to the United Alliance, the man who had betrayed them all, selling their fleet's coordinates to the Dominion in the final days of the war, costing millions of lives. Dain exhaled, slow and steady. "Where is he?" "Fled the system before the final battle," Aria said. "Intelligence suggests he's gathering the last of his forces in the outer sectors. The Council wants him dead before he can start another war." Dain looked past her, toward the stars. "Then we find him first." Deep within the Retribution, in the dimly lit armory, Sergeant Ro Varric tightened the straps on his heavy combat vest. His massive frame was tense, his hands moving with practiced precision over his weapon. An old but reliable plasma rifle with the scorch marks of 100 battles. "Tell me we're going after the bastard," Ro muttered, his voice a low growl. Dain leaned against the bulkhead, arms crossed. "We are." Ro's cybernetic arm flexed, the reinforced alloy plating gleaming under the fluorescent light. His jaw tightened. "Good. He's got a lot of people to answer to." Beside him, Dr. Sola Jane let out a soft sigh, pushing a lock of dark hair behind her ear. Revenge missions don't usually end well. She tapped at her datapad, eyes scanning through intelligence reports. Saris isn't just running. He's planning something. Dain straightened. "What do you have?" Sola hesitated, then turned the screen toward him. "Encrypted transmissions. He's been in contact with Dominion loyalists. He's not just fleeing, he's building something." A long silence filled the armory. Finally, Dain pushed off the wall. "Then we put him down before he does." The Retribution exited hyperspace with a shudder, dropping into orbit around Erebus Prime, a lawless, storm-choked planet where criminals and war deserters found sanctuary. Below, a city sprawled across the darkened surface, neon lights flickering between the jagged structures of rusted metal and forgotten technology. Dain led his squad down the loading ramp of their dropship, the air thick with the scent of oil and decay. Bounty hunters, smugglers, and mercenaries filled the streets, their voices blending into the chaos of the underworld. They moved with purpose through the narrow alleyways, following the lead of an informant. A former Dominion officer who had jumped ship before the war's end. Inside a seedy bar, the Hollow Star, they found him. A gaunt man with sunken eyes, hands twitching from either nerves or stimulants. "You're looking for ghosts," the informant whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of music and conversation. Dain leaned forward. and you're stalling." The man swallowed hard. Saris isn't just hiding. He's preparing for something big. He's got an entire fleet waiting in the outer sectors. You go after him, and you won't come back. Dane didn't blink. "Where is he?" The informant hesitated, then slid a small data chip across the table. "Coordinates. He's been seen on Varax 9. But if you go there—" A gunshot rang through the bar. The informant's head snapped back, a crimson mist spraying across the table. Chaos erupted. Dayan's team moved fast. Ro slammed a table into an oncoming attacker. Arya fired a silenced shot into a sniper on the balcony, and Sola dragged Dine behind cover as another shot whizzed past. Someone had been watching them. Someone wanted to make sure they never got that information. Through the comms, the pilot's voice crackled. "Commander, we've got incoming hostiles. You need to get out, now." Dane grabbed the data chip, shoving it into his wrist-mounted interface. "We're leaving." The Vanguard fought their way through the dark alleys of Erebus Prime, gunfire chasing them at every turn. When they finally reached their ship, its thrusters roaring to life, Dane cast one last glance back at the city. Someone had tipped Saris off. This wasn't just a hunt. It was a race. And they were already running out of time. The hunt for Admiral Saris was no longer a mission. It was a race. Dane Kestros and his team had barely escaped Erebus Prime, and the message was clear. Saris knew they were coming. With the stolen coordinates leading to Varax 9, they had their next destination. But finding him wouldn't be enough. They had to stop him before he could rebuild what the war had destroyed. The Retribution burned through hyperspace, pushing its engines to their limits. The hunt had begun. Varax 9 was a world on the edge of oblivion. As the Retribution dropped out of hyperspace, its crew was met with the sight of a barren, sand-choked planet. Vast canyons stretched across its surface, broken only by the skeletal remains of long-abandoned Dominion war facilities. Inside the warship's dimly lit briefing room, a holographic display flickered to life. The image of a sprawling outpost, half buried in the sands, hovered above the table. This was an old Dominion weapons facility, Sola Jane explained, tapping the projection. Long abandoned, but recent heat signatures suggest someone's been using it. Dine nodded, arms crossed. Saris wouldn't hide in the open. He's here for a reason. Arya Vallis leaned in, her green eyes sharp. "We go in quiet. If Saris is here, we take him alive." Ro Varric, ever the pragmatist, grunted. "If he lets us." The plan was set. The Vanguard would infiltrate the outpost under the cover of night. If Saris was here, this would be their chance. The Vanguard descended through the upper atmosphere in a sleek, black dropship, the storm winds battering the hull. Red lightning cracked through the skies, illuminating the endless dunes below. As they touched down, sand whipped across their visors. Their armor's filters adjusted, keeping the worst of the storm at bay. Dine signaled forward, his rifle steady in his hands. "Stay close. We move fast." They advanced through the howling storm, their shadows long against the canyon walls. Ahead, the entrance to the outpost loomed, rusted blast doors, half buried in the sand. Arya knelt by the console, her fingers flying across the keypad. "It's locked down. Give me a second." A second was too long. From the cliffs above, figures emerged, Dominion soldiers, their armor stripped of insignia, their weapons already raised. Dine's instincts took over. "Ambush! Take cover!" The first shot slammed into the sand, kicking up clouds of dust. Dane dove behind a jagged outcrop, returning fire with quick, precise bursts. Arya rolled aside, her sidearm flashing as she took down a sniper perched above. Ro unleashed hell. His heavy rifle roared, cutting down the attackers with brutal efficiency. Sola flanked left, launching an EMP charge that sent a Dominion trooper's exosuit sparking violently. The firefight was swift, brutal, and ended as quickly as it began. The last soldier fell, his blood staining the sand. Dine stepped forward, his weapon still raised. These weren't just stragglers. Arya knelt beside one of the bodies, pulling a small insignia from the soldier's belt. The emblem was unfamiliar, a Dominion sigil, but altered, twisted into something new. "This isn't over," she muttered. The blast doors groaned open. The outpost awaited them. Inside, the air was stale, filled with the scent of rust and decayed circuitry. The dim emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows along the metal corridors. Dane led the way, his steps silent against the grated floor. The deeper they ventured, the clearer it became. This place wasn't abandoned. Weapons crates lined the walls. Star maps flickered on old consoles, updated with recent Dominion fleet movements. Someone had been operating here. Sola accessed a terminal, her fingers moving fast. "This isn't just a hideout. This is a command post." She paused, her brow furrowing. "And we're not alone." A distant clatter echoed through the halls. The vanguard moved in formation, sweeping the corridors. The sound grew louder, rapid footsteps, the hum of an engine. Doan barely had time to react before a small hover drone zipped around the corner, its camera lens locking onto them. It let out a sharp, electronic chirp. Then it exploded. The shockwave sent them all staggering back. Flames licked the walls, alarms blaring overhead. Through the smoke, a single figure emerged, a man in a Dominion officer's uniform, his hands raised in surrender. Dain trained his weapon on him. "Identify yourself." The officer coughed, his voice hoarse. "Commander Kestros, I know why you're here." Dain's jaw tightened. "Where's Saris?" The officer exhaled. "Gone, but he left something behind." He gestured to a reinforced vault at the end of the hall. "You need to see it for yourself." The vault door creaked open, revealing a single stasis pod. Inside, a figure lay motionless, a woman suspended in glowing blue light. Sola's eyes widened. "That's impossible." Dane took a slow step forward. "Who is she?" The officer's voice was grim. "Project Eclipse." A cold weight settled in Dane's gut. Arya turned sharply. "The Eclipse? That was supposed to be a myth." The officer shook his head. "It's very real. Saris took the ship, but he left the key." He gestured to the woman in the pod. "She's the key." Dane stared at the frozen figure, his pulse hammering. Saris wasn't just building an army. He had stolen a weapon capable of ending worlds, and if they didn't stop him, he would use it. They barely had time to react before the room's doors slammed shut. From the intercom, a voice crackled to life, a voice Dane knew too well. Saris. "Ah, Commander Kestros. I was wondering when you'd catch up." Dane's grip tightened on his rifle. "You should have run farther." A low chuckle. "Oh, I'm exactly where I need to be. And so are you." The floor beneath them trembled. Distant explosions echoed through the facility. Saris continued, his voice calm. "You see, you've been very helpful, Dane. I needed just a little more time to get the Eclipse operational. And now, thanks to you, I have it." Dain's stomach dropped. "What did you do?" The officer who had led them here suddenly smirked. Then, before anyone could react, he pressed a detonator on his wrist. The explosion ripped through the facility. Dane barely had time to register the force before he was thrown into darkness. Pain. Dane forced his eyes open. Alarms screamed around him. The facility was collapsing. Rowe pulled him to his feet. "Move, Commander." Through the crumbling wreckage, he saw Arya dragging Sola toward the exit. The stasis pod gone. Ceres had played them. The vanguard sprinted through the burning halls, dodging falling debris. The heat from the fires seared against their armor. Outside, the sandstorm howled. Their dropship was already lifting off, the pilot screaming through the comms, "We have to leave, now!" Diane looked back one last time. Ceres had taken the eclipse, and the war wasn't over. As the retribution roared into the void, Dawn clenched his fists. The final hunt had begun. The war was over, but the real battle had just begun. Ceres had taken the eclipse, an ancient Dominion superweapon thought to be a myth. If he activated it, entire star systems would burn. Millions would die. For Dane Kestros and his team, failure was not an option. The retribution streaked through the void, chasing the last coordinates Ceres had left behind. Time was running out. The ship's war room was tense. Holographic star charts flickered across the display, mapping possible locations for Ceres's final stand. Arya paced, her arms crossed. If he wanted to hide, he'd stay in the outer sectors, but he's not hiding. He's making a move. Sola tapped the console. The last transmission from the facility contained encrypted jump coordinates. I decoded them. She zoomed in on a sector far beyond Dominion-controlled space. Titan's Grave. Dane frowned. He'd heard of it. A massive derelict battlefield where the wreckage of countless ships drifted in endless silence. It was a graveyard from wars long forgotten, a perfect place to hide something as dangerous as the eclipse. Rowe cracked his knuckles. Then that's where we go. Dane looked around at his team. This is it. We go in, take down Ceres, and destroy the eclipse before he can use it. No one hesitated. The hunt was on. The retribution dropped out of hyperspace into darkness. Massive husks of dead warships drifted in the void, their broken hulls silhouetted against the cold glow of a dying star. Electrical storms arced between the debris, sending pulses of white-hot energy crackling through space. And at the center of it all, the eclipse loomed. It was colossal. A Dominion dreadnought unlike anything in recorded history. Ancient, yet terrifyingly intact. Its jagged hull pulsed with a dull red glow, as if awakening from centuries of slumber. Dane's hands clenched into fists. There it is. Through the viewport, they could see Ceres's fleet, Dominion loyalists, mercenaries, and deserters who had sworn fealty to his cause. A dozen warships circled the eclipse like vultures. Ceres wasn't just planning an attack. He was building an empire. Dane turned to his crew. We go in quiet, infiltrate the ship, disable its core, and take down Ceres before he can activate it. Arya smirked, locking her rifle into place. Just another impossible mission. Rowe grunted. Wouldn't have it any other way. They boarded their stealth ship, the Phantom, and slipped into the wreckage. The final battle was about to begin. The Phantom maneuvered through the wreckage, dodging searchlights and patrol ships. The closer they got, the more the eclipse revealed its true horror. Sola's voice was tense. I'm picking up energy signatures. It's waking up. They had to move fast. The stealth ship latched onto the dreadnought's hull. The team exited, magnetic boots clamping onto the metal surface. Dane led the way through an airlock, his pulse steady. Inside, the corridors were eerily silent. Dominion technology, long thought obsolete, hummed back to life. Arya hacked into the security grid, her fingers moving quickly. I've got the layout. The main reactor is below the command center. If we disable it, the whole ship goes dark. Dane nodded. Then that's where we go. But as they moved forward, they weren't alone. Figures emerged from the shadows. Dominion soldiers, their eyes cold, their weapons raised. The fight began in an instant. Dane fired first, his shots cutting through the darkness. Ro charged forward, his heavy rifle tearing through enemy ranks. Arya moved like a ghost, taking down targets with deadly precision, but the deeper they went, the more resistance they faced. Saris had expected them. He was waiting. The doors to the command center slid open with a hiss. Saris stood at the heart of the ship, his hands clasped behind his back. The dim red light from the reactor cast long shadows across his face. "You should have stayed away, Dane," he said, his voice calm. Dine stepped forward, his weapon raised. "You betrayed everything we fought for." Saris smirked. "Did I? Or did I finally see the truth?" He gestured around them. "The Dominion lost because they were weak. The Alliance will fall for the same reason. But with the Eclipse, I can build something stronger." Dane's eyes burned with fury. "You'll destroy everything." Saris tilted his head. "Sacrifices must be made." The standoff lasted only a moment. Then, Saris drew his weapon. The duel was fast, brutal. Saris was a veteran, his movements precise and calculated. Dine met him strike for strike, their weapons flashing in the dim light. Arya and Ro held back the Dominion forces, covering Dine as he fought. Saris dodged a strike and slammed his fist into Dane's ribs, sending him staggering back. "You were always predictable," he sneered. Dine wiped blood from his mouth. "And you were always a coward." With a final, decisive move, Dine drove his knife into Saris's side. The Admiral gasped, stumbling back, blood dripping from the wound. Dane caught him before he fell. "It's over." Saris chuckled, a hint of madness in his eyes. "No, it's just beginning." He pressed a final command on his wrist console. The ship trembled. The Eclipse was activating. Alarms blared as the ship came to life. Sola's voice screamed through the comms. "The core is overloading. You need to get out, now!" Dine grabbed Saris's collar. "How do we stop it?" Saris coughed, smirking through the pain. "You don't." Dine let him go. "Then we take the whole thing down." He turned to his team. "We need to overload the reactor manually." Arya and Ro rushed to the control panel, forcing the system into meltdown. The ship groaned, its systems fighting against them. Explosions rippled through the corridors. The Eclipse was dying. They ran. Fires consumed the dreadnought as they sprinted to the hangar. Dominion soldiers fled in chaos, their fleet abandoning the doomed vessel. The Vanguard barely made it to the Phantom before the final explosion tore through the ship. As they blasted away, the Eclipse erupted in a blinding wave of fire. Saris was gone. His fleet was broken. The war was finally over. Back aboard the Retribution, silence filled the bridge. They had won, but at a cost. Dane looked at his team, exhausted, wounded, but alive. Sola sat at the console scanning the wreckage. No signs of escape pods. Arya exhaled. "Then it's done." Ro crossed his arms. "And if anyone else tries this again?" Dane looked out at the stars. "Then we'll be ready." The hunt had ended, but their fight would never truly be over. As the Retribution turned toward home, Dane allowed himself one final thought. Saris was right about one thing. Sacrifices had been made, but not for conquest, for peace.